just received in our and further details of this continuing story. Just received in our this is the latest dispatch just received in our news.
Hello, and welcome again to the Clapback. No, it's not a show about how to tell if a black dude respects someone.
Thank you, man. Thank you. All right.
That's a dap back. The Clapback is the only news show that doesn't talk about the news. We talk to the news. And then we clap back at it, because sometimes the news don't know its worth. So you gotta be like,
sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
now, let's be honest. Everyone knows that Donald Trump lies like that dude Jerome who used to come over to your mom's house late at night and say he needed to help your mom install some new plumbing. And you wonder what was going on because your mama ain't even have no toilet in her room. And you wondered why her plumbing was always leaking in her bedroom, but she was always in a good mood when Jerome left, so you didn't even think about it until one day the kitchen sink broke and she called some white dude over. And you asked her, why didn't she call Jerome? And she said, that nigga don't know nothing about no sinks. And then you suddenly realized that Jerome didn't have his plumbing license. And all this time Jerome was trying to tell you that he was coming over to lay pipe. Trump is like Jerome. He lies like a motherfucker.
It looked like a million and a half people.
We're going to reduce taxes tremendously because we have the highest tax rate anywhere in the world.
We're actually the highest taxed major country anywhere in the world by far.
We're the highest taxed nation in the developed world.
They repeatedly said that we're the highest taxed nation in the world, when that's been seen as objectively false.
Got 306 electoral college votes. I wasn't supposed to get 222. They said there's no way to get 222. 230 is impossible. 270, which you need, that was laughable. We got 306 because people came out and voted like they've never seen before. So that's the way it goes. I guess it was the biggest electoral college win since Ronald Reagan.
You said today that you had the biggest electoral margin since Ronald Reagan with 304, 306 electoral votes. In fact, President Obama got 365.
Well, I'm talking about Republican. Yeah.
President Obama 332
Yeah.
and George H.W. Bush 426 when he won as president. So why should Americans trust?
Well, no, I was given that information. I don't know. I was just given. We had a very, very big margin.
Okay, Jeremy, that's enough. We can't keep playing clips of Donald Trump telling lies. But now that I have watched him, you know what? I totally changed my mind about Trump. Y'all, I don't think Trump is a liar. I think we have another problem. It's obvious that Donald Trump doesn't know math. Now everything makes sense, including his most recent statements about coronavirus testing.
You know, we've been doing testing at a level that nobody's ever done it before. We cannot get the press to write about it or write fairly about it. And nobody has ever done. We've done double what anyone else. If you add up all of the countries in the world, we've done more testing than all of the countries in the world added up together. Nobody's ever done anything like that.
Forget all that countries combined part. He probably forgot to carry the one, but there's a good reason why Donald keeps saying that we've tested more people than everyone else. Because it's true. The U.S. has done more testing than any other nation, according to other countries' data. But if Donald Trump understood long division, he'd understand that there's a simple reason why the citizens of Germany, Spain, Italy, and even Portugal aren't complaining about tests while, Americans are. See, they've tested more per capita than America. Hey, Jeremy. Can you scroll down to see where the U.S. is on the testing per capita list? A little bit more. Okay, we're number 11, which is almost in the top 10. And according to my first grade math teacher, a 0 means nothing, which means we're number 1. And that's probably why Trump keeps saying this.
By the way, when you say that we lead in cases, that's because we have more testing than anybody else. So we test much more than anybody else. Again, we're close to 14 million. It was said 12, 12 and a half. It's actually, I think, close to 14 million now. And so we have 14 million tests. In Germany, if they do 2 million, that's a lot. And others are doing 1 million. So if you're testing 14 million people, you're going to find many more cases. We have more cases than anybody in the world. But why? Because we do more testing. When you test, you have a case. When you test, you find something is wrong with people. If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases.
Wait, does Donald Trump think that coronavirus testing causes coronavirus? Or maybe he thinks that the CDC is giving people actual pop quizzes, and if they fail, then what? We infect them with COVID-19? Is that why, Donald, is that why you were wearing goggles, but you weren't wearing a mask in a factory that literally manufactures masks? Do you think that the inability to do long division makes you COVID-19 resistance? Okay, y'all, maybe I better teach Donald Trump how per capita works. Mr. President, per capita does not have anything to do with the fraternity dudes who twirl canes. That's per capita. We're not calculating how many nukes you need to get tested. We're dividing the total population by the number of tests given to find the rate of testing. Now, I can see how this can be confusing because most people don't pay attention to these things. For instance, if you watch most news networks, you're liable to see a map like this one from MSNBC. Now, to the layperson, it looks like this has a lot of information, but to me, it looks like trash. And you know why? I've seen it a million times. You know why New York has more cases? Because they have more people. Same with California and Texas. In fact, you want to see something spooky? Here's a map of the population of each state. See? It's the same damn map as the coronavirus map. The coronavirus map offers no information because it don't even show the cases per capita, and that just ain't some nerd shit. For instance, you keep hearing about how bad the epidemic is in California, and look, it's red on the map, so it must be terrible. Nope. Per capita, California ranks 16th best in coronavirus rate in the country, and it's doing better than Kansas and Nevada and Rhode Island, and I don't even think people live in Rhode Island. Rhode Island is one of those states where they have to draw a line on the map because it's so tiny, and I don't even believe that shit. Bruh, ain't no such thing as Rhode Island. That's just some bullshit they want you to believe to keep you from learning math. If Rhode Island was a real state, there'd be at least one rapper from there. Anyway, President Trump, math doesn't cause COVID-19, and not knowing your timetables doesn't produce coronavirus antibodies. You still gotta wear a mask. And it's not that I don't want you to get sick. I just think it might filter out some of your bullshit. Since this episode has, I don't know, somehow become a math class, let's continue with one of the most frequent claims you'll hear.
Enter the Black Lives Matter crew, which roams around the country promoting a false narrative that American police officers are actively hunting down and killing blacks. Here's the truth. Police shot whites at a rate of 50% in 2015. Police shot blacks at a rate of 26%. In addition, Black Lives Matter is now infringing on freedom of assembly and freedom of expression.
It's not that we think that they're stupid. They are ill-informed. I bet you anything he has no idea that police shootings against blacks are down 75% in the last 45 years. Twice as many whites are killed by the police versus cops. And of the people that were killed last year by the cops, 965 according to the Washington Post.
Let me bring our audience in.
Less than 4% of them were blacks who were unarmed.
See, Bill O'Reilly and people who burn their Nikes love to point out that statistic, that police kill more white people than they kill black people. Now, this lady wrote me personally to explain it. And this Twitter Karen is absolutely correct. Police do shoot more white people than black people, except when you know math. Again, it's not how many, but what the percentage it is. So to explain this concept, let's say you're in a room with 99 other people whose race is exactly according to the Census Bureau data. So there are 59 white people, 13 black people, 18 Latinx people, a few Asians, and so on. Now a cop bursts in the room and opens fire with a gun that has 16 bullets. And when his clip is empty, 5 black people are dead. 6 whites, 3 Latinx, and 2 other people. Now Billy and the white lady are correct. The cop killed more white people But because of how numbers work, it means the cop shot about 38% of the black people and only about 10% of the white people. And because black people are 13% of the population, that means the black people who were killed in the room were killed at nearly 3 times the rate of their percentage of population. But white people were actually killed at a lower percentage rate than they actually exist in the wild. Now, these figures are basically how many people police shot who were unarmed in 2017. Now, let's continue with this little story. A year later, you're in a room with 100 more people, same demographics. This time, 10 cops burst in. And each cop has 1 bullet in their gun, and they open fire again. And this time, 3 black people die, 5 white people die. And again, this means black people in the room were 3 times more likely to be killed than the white people, even though more white people were killed. And this is 2018 unarmed victims of police brutality. Let's keep going with this demonstration. A year later, you're in the same room with the same demographics. Now, I don't know why you keep going into this room, Bill and Karen, but this time 100 cops burst in and they open fire, and some miss and some hit and some just wound some people. But in the end, here's who dies. 3 black people, 4 white people, 2 Hispanic people, 1 other person. Well, that's what happened to unarmed people in 2019. Okay, so you've escaped every police killing so far. But this year, you go into a room with 99 people. What the fuck, man? Why you keep going into the room? You get kept like they're shooting every year. Stop going into a room, like count before you go into the room. Anyway, social distancing, bro. Okay, you go into the room with 99 people. A cop enters the room. And you notice something different about this cop. He's blind. Now, you have no idea how many people he's going to kill. You don't even know if he's a killer, how many bullets he's got, or even if he's the same cop you see every year, he'll be opening fire because you keep going in the motherfucking room. But before he pulls out his gun, the blind cop asks you a simple question. What's your race? Now, if this cop starts killing, you know he's going to kill more white people. Now, you don't know if these police killings end up eerily similar every year because it's just planned or if it's a coincidence. You don't even know why this keeps happening. You do know 3 things, though. 1, everybody knows it has nothing to do with crime statistics. Numerous studies have shown that police use of force has no correlation to crime. A 2015 study concluded that there was no relationship between crime rates by race and how many black people police shoot. A report reviewed arrest records and police use of force data from 12 police departments, and it found that black residents were more often targeted for use of police force than white residents, even when adjusting for whether the person was a violent criminal or not. In fact, the group that shows the most disproportionate numbers of police killings are black people who are unarmed and running away from the police. Now, the second thing you know is this. White people kill more police. Even though cops search more black people than white people, even though they stop more black people during traffic stops than white people, even though they do all of that, white people are more likely to have contraband. And even though whites use more illegal drugs than black people, and black people are arrested at 3 times the rate of white people for drugs, even though cops are most likely shot during drug arrests and traffic stops every year, most cops are killed in the line of duty by white people. So, police don't disproportionately kill black people because black people are more likely to kill cops, and they don't disproportionately kill black people because of crime. But Bill, this year you get to choose whoever you want to be. And because the cop is blind, there's no way this cop will ever know if you're lying. So, if and when the cops start shooting, would you rather be one of 60 white people in the room or one of the 13 black people in the room? Your life depends on it. He's waiting. What's your answer, white people? Come on. Now, whenever any black person brings up anything about racism or white supremacy, white people often interject one universally loved point.
Guess what? I could be at work, at school, in my car. I can still get shot by the police. I can get shot anywhere.
Well, her fear isn't real. It's based on emotion, and it's not based on anything factual that she'd be able to articulate. It's just out of control behavior. I'll tell you what she faces danger, where she faces danger. It's being on the street in any American ghetto where the black-on-black crime is a bigger threat and a bigger problem in the black community than the police use of force.
So the question now is, has the original message of the NFL protest during the national anthem gotten lost over time? Do players even know what they're protesting anymore?
It's a good question. Two great questions. Our next guest says it's time for the players to take a stand for something, and that is the growing epidemic of black-on-black crime.
But in terms of protesting the issue of Black Lives Lost, one of the most dramatically difficult things to fathom in this nation is the amount of life lost, Black lives lost as a result of black-on-black violence.
The old, but what about black-on-black crime arguments. In the annals of white deflection, black-on-black crime ranks ahead of, but what about Chicago? And slavery's been over for 400 years. So let's talk about it. And I specifically chose those clips to show you that it's not just white people who believe this nonsense. Black people believe this bullshit too. So let's talk about it. But instead of giving you my opinion, again, let's use math. So here's a trick I like to do whenever people bring up this topic. Go into whatever city you're in and find an Eventbrite page, or go into Facebook events and just search for an event or an organization dedicated to stopping the violence. Since Mr. Respect the Anthem was the Attorney General of Indiana, I searched for organizations dedicated to stopping the violence in Indianapolis. It literally took me 1/2 of 1 second to find. So what do we find? I'm gonna be honest. I stopped counting at 183 organizations and 76 separate events that were held this year in Indianapolis dedicated to reducing violence. And they were all black organizations. They were black fraternities and black sororities and not the per capas. There was a nonprofit that trained formerly incarcerated individuals on work skills. There were even cookouts. There was a whole mentoring program dedicated to deterring and preventing youth violence across the state of Indiana. And then I looked up how many Black Lives Matter chapters there were, how many police brutality marches, and how many events there were in all of Indianapolis all last year. You know what I found out? There were 9. That's right, 9 the whole year. But I wasn't done. Next, I went to the FBI's database and looked up the crime numbers. And they were right. White people commit more crime, but black people commit a disproportionate number of crime. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Remember what I said about per capita? Not the cappas, per capita. But here's the thing that they never say. See, in 2017, the latest year that the FBI has statistics, black people were arrested for 2.2 million crimes. Now, those were the total number of offenses that people were charged with and committed. But some of those people were arrested for more than one crime. Some of them were not prosecuted for the crime. Some of them got off. But let's give white people the benefit of the doubt and say that every single crime was committed by a different black person. Well, there are about 44 million black people in the United States. And using long division, that works out to about 5% of the population, which means that if every black person on that FBI data list committed one crime apiece, it still means that 95% of the black people in the country did not commit a single crime. And it still means that 98% of white people didn't commit a single crime. So why don't white people talk about white on white crime? See, simply asking a random black person to solve something that 95% of black people have nothing to do with is racist in and of itself. Because you know who also hates black on black crime? Black people. Now, I admit that I haven't conducted a formal poll or studied the results from the National Hood Nigga Survey, but I can say with some assurity that the vast majority of black people are anti-murder, and most of the people I met at cookouts and in crack houses are not vocal champions for rape, robbery, or most other kinds of violence. I bet that the average African American doesn't personally know enough killers, rapists, and thieves to make a significant impact on the crime statistics in black neighborhoods. Now, if you truly want to know about black on black crime, don't ask me, motherfucker. Ask Batman. Before I stamp out the entire populace of Negro thug lifers, I need a detailed explanation for why do white people stick their bare feet out of car windows? I mean, who started that shit? Do pink toes need more air? Is racism wind-powered? I've seen far more Caucasians with their crust-colored feet dangling haphazardly out of Honda Civics than I've witnessed drive-by, so I'm sure you can clarify this shit for me. And if my theory sounds crazy, it's still not as preposterous as the assumption that the proverbial black community knows how to solve black-on-black crime, but I don't know, for some unknown reason, we just chose not to fix it. And if black people were working their asses off in the black community to stop black-on-black crime, how would you hear about it? Have you ever seen a Fox News exclusive showing black people opening up a mentoring program or tutoring kids? Shit, they still won't admit that Obama rescued the economy. So how would you know what the hell black people were doing among black people and black communities you obviously think are filled with Tupac clones and cold-blooded Kool-Aid drinking gangbangers? Which brings me to my last question. Is you Batman? I confess, I can't tell Robert Pattinson from Chris Pine, so forgive me if I haven't noticed that you were Bruce Wayne. Now, you gotta be some kind of superhero, right? The only reason anyone would ever ask why black people haven't addressed our problems is if they had the secret solution to poverty and crime, but were withholding the answer because they assumed that we didn't want it. Now, I think I speak for the entirety of all niggerdom when I assure you that we are ready to accept your antidote for how to magically fix crime without white people addressing income inequality, historical discrimination, economic injustice, lack of mental health resources, segregation, implicit bias, desperation, poverty, inferior education systems, predatory capitalism, and a rabid criminal justice institution. Thankfully, I have the phone number of the black community saved in my phone, and I'm going to text them and tell them that you're on your way to eliminate crime on every Martin Luther King Avenue in America. Thanks, Batman. You're the best math teacher ever. And also, fuck you. And may the clapback be with you all. Amen.
This is the latest dispatch just received in our newsroom.